Once upon a time, Disney told timeless stories. Now it seems more interested in rewriting them. Snow White 2025 opens not with a magical kingdom, but with an ideological battleground. Before a single line is spoken, it's clear this film isn't here to retell a fairy tale, it's here to correct it. Or at least what Disney thinks needs correcting. Gone are the days of innocent wonder. In their place, a self-aware, almost defensive tone, as if the movie is in constant conversation with online discourse rather than its own narrative. There is no question that the Snow White is meant to signal change, empowerment, and modern values, but somewhere along the way, the story forgets the charm isn't a flaw, it's a foundation. This isn't a critic of progress, this is a critic of execution. From the first scene, Disney seems so terrified of offending modern sensibilities that it strips the tale of everything that once made it feel enchanting. And when a studio tries this hard to prove it's evolved, the result often feels less like a fairy tale and more like a corporate statement wearing a ball gown. Let's talk about what that does to one of the most iconic stories ever told. Let's be clear, Snow White has always been a symbol, but in 2025 she's a battleground. This version of Snow isn't waiting for a prince. That much is hammered in from the marketing alone. But what does she want instead? The film doesn't seem sure. She's written in defiance, but not depth. She's bold, but not nuanced. Empired, but not emotionally complex. Instead of growing through her journey, Snow starts fully formed, almost perfect, almost untouchable, and ironically, in trying to avoid the damsel in distress stereotype, Disney has created a character who rarely feels human at all. A princess with no vulnerability isn't revolutionary, it's just hollow. What made classic Snow White resonate wasn't her helplessness, it was her heart, her kindness in the face of cruelty, her ability to dream even the world shut her out. Here, we get ideals, not intimacy, values, not vulnerability. And that's the real loss. There was a time when Disney could put a D on screen and make you believe in wonder, but Snow White 2025 struggles to inspire ever, not because the effects are bad, they are not, but because the heart isn't in it. The forest no longer thinks. The dwarfs, not replaced by a diverse group of magical companions, don't sparkle with personality or warmth. The queen, while visually stunning, is undercut by uneven tone and inconsistent stakes. And Snow? She's too aware of the world's problem to ever truly escape them, and so are we. In chasing modernity, the film forgets to enchant. It doesn't whisk you away. It reminds you of what it's trying not to be. Magic on Disney films used to be felt in quiet moments. A glance, a gasp, a song. Here, it's been overexplained, overscripted, and undercut by a movie too afraid to be sincere, because sincerity is risky. And this movie doesn't take risk. It just avoids criticism. But you can create wonder when you're constantly looking over your shoulder. In a film about identity and perception, the evil queen should have been a showstopper, a light antagonist with charisma, danger, and depth. But here, she's more style than substance. Visually, she dominates the screen. The costumes, the makeup, the camera framing. She's the film's most cinematic element. But her motivation are paper thin. Her obsession with beauty feels recycled without reinvention, and her manners lacks weight. She's not scary, she's just loud. And worst of all, she's underused. Every time we begin to explain her pain, her insecurity, or even her twisted ambition, the films pull back, afraid to linger on darkness too long. What could have been a nuanced villain becomes a cardboard cutout wearing couture and speaking in cliches. This isn't the evil queen we feared, it's the version the studio thought we could handle. The dialogue in Snow White often sounds like it was written by a committee trying to go viral. Every line feels like a mission statement, not a conversation. Snow doesn't talk like a girl in a fairy tale. She speaks like a spokesperson for a brand new worldview, and while there's nothing wrong with values, there's everything wrong with characters that feel like mouthpieces instead of people. No one stumbles over words, no one doubts themselves, no one evolves mid sentence. It's all polished declarations, empowerment slogans, social commentary, and moral affirmations. But where's the human messiness? Where is the awkwardness, the uncertainty, the discovery? A character doesn't need to be perfect to be inspiring. In fact, they shouldn't be. But when every scene sounds like a TED talk, you lose the emotional texture that makes a fairy tale live in the hearts of an audience. It's not that the script lacks intelligence, it's that it lacks rhythm and soul. A fairy tale without wonder is like a kingdom without a crown. Snow White in 2025 has visual effects, yes, but magic? Not quite. The enchanted forest, once a place of mystery and discovery, feels more like a green screen backdrop than a living world. The animals don't charm, the spells don't dazzle, and the iconic mirror moments lands with all the impact of a screensaver. Disney once made us believe that wishing wells whispered secrets and the magic lived in every shadow. Here, fantasy feels like an obligation, not a heartbeat. The musical cues hit at wonder, but the visuals rarely follow through. Magic isn't just glitter and CGI, it's emotion, timing, silence, and surprise. And in this version of Snow White, the spark that once lit up childhood dreams feels frustratingly absent, like a spell half cast. One of the boldest and most controversial changes in this version was the reimagining of Seven Dwarfs. Gone are the iconic personalities, grumpy, dopey, dog, replaced by a mix of differently abled characters and eclectic outcasts. On paper, the shift aims for inclusivity. In execution, it's a tonal mess. None of the new characters are given meaningful development. The introduction are rushed, their chemistry forced, and the dialogue often leans into awkward exposition. Instead of grounding Snow in a newfound family dynamic, they orbit around her with a little depth or emotional pull. Worse, the attempt to modernize these aspects ends up stripping away the whimsy and warmth that made the dwarves so memorable. Reinvention can be brilliant, but only when done with a care, texture, and storytelling finesse. This version feels like it wanted to avoid offense more than it wanted to build connection, and in the process, it lost the heart. It's one thing to rewrite a fairy tale, it's another to rewrite the heart of its heroine and forget to replace it with anything compelling. In Snow White 2025, the titular character is no longer the innocent, kind, and quietly courageous girl or old. Instead, she's been rewritten as a fiscally independent, leadership-focused figure, but without the nuance or emotional grounding to make her relatable. Her motivations are vague, her growth arc nearly non-existent, and her dialogue often sounds more like a political candidate than a fairy tale protagonist. It's clear Disney wanted to make a modern heroine, but forgot to make her human. You can be strong and kind, brave and gentle. Instead, the Snow White is built on rejection rather than reinvention, a reaction to the past rather than a character in her own right. It's not progress or flattened complexity, it's just storytelling that forgot to breathe. Remember the prince? No? Neither do we. In the 2025 Snow White, the prince is so underwritten, he might as well be invisible. He's barely introduced, given no real arc, and his chemistry with Snow is at best theoretical. Disney, perhaps in fear of repeating outdated tropes, reduced him to a narrative afterthought. But removing his character's identity isn't the same as improving it. Instead of giving the prince his own journey, his own humanity, or even basic charisma, they gave him nothing at all. Romantic tension? None. Emotional payoff? Zero. He's less a character, more a checkbox. In trying to correct the problem of the old prince saving the day, the film ends up erasing a key emotional stake connection. And without it, even fairy tales fall flat. One of the most controversial changes in Snow White 2025 was Disney's decision to reimagine the iconic Seven Dwarfs. And the result is a case study in well-meaning misfire. Instead of magical beings rooted in fairy tale logic, we are given an awkward mix of characters who seem pulled from different genres, time periods, and agendas. The charm, unity, and whimsical chemistry that once defined the group are replaced by confusing casting, mismatched personalities, and inconsistent writing. Representation matters deeply, but it cannot come at the cost of storytelling logic. When characters feel more like statements than people, the magic disappears. The dwarfs once grounded the emotional core of Snow White. Now they are disjointed side notes in a film that doesn't know how to use them. This isn't evolution, it's a rage disguised as inclusivity. The poison apple, one of the cinema's most iconic symbols. In new movie, even that isn't safe from the script's attempt to outsmart its own simplicity. What was once a chilling metaphor, temptation, deception, innocence lost, now feels like a forgotten relic awkwardly wedged into a film too afraid to embrace myth. There's no weight to the moment, no slow build of dread, no thematic resonance. It happens and is over. The danger feels sanitized, the drama dulled, the metaphor undercooked. Fairy tales endure because their symbols hit something primal. You don't need to exploit the apple, you just need to make us feel it. But here, it's just another plot point on a checklist, stripped of its magic, stripped of its meaning. In a world where villains often steal the snow, the evil queen shouldn't have been the film's dark crown jewel, commanding, seductive, terrifying. Instead, we get a strangely muted presence. Her motivation feels rushed, her arc flattened, and her once menacing gravitas traded for half-baked modern commentary on beauty standards. Yes, there's room to explore deeper meanings, but not at the expense of character. The 1937 Queen was iconic because she didn't ask for power, she took it. She was vanity incarnate, but also mythic. Here, she's a shadow of that. More the footnote that threat. The tragedy isn't that the queen is evil, it's that she's forgettable. You had expected live action Snow White to overflow with cinematic wonder, a forest that breathes, a mirror that whispers, an apple that glows with death. Instead, the magic here feels corporate. The visuals are polished but sterile. The CGI is competent but soulless. The color palette leans into muted realism, forgetting that fairy tales thrive in dream logic, not grayscale. It's not about budget, it's about intention. The 2025 film is so afraid of being labeled too childish or too traditional that it strips its own fantasy of wonder. Magic isn't about effects, it's about feeling. And this version of Snow White seems afraid to make you feel enchanted. Reinventing Snow White was always going to be a challenge, but rather than modernizing her character with nuance, Disney simply erased her essence. Disney simply erased her essence. Gone is the warmth, gone is the humanity, gone is the kindness that defined her. This Snow White isn't a revision, she's a reaction. She doesn't grow, she lectures. She doesn't enchant, she assets. There's a difference between empowerment and ego, and the film doesn't seem to know what the line is. Audiences didn't want the 1937 version repeated. They wanted her soul translated, not deleted. But what we get in protagonist who talks about leadership but never earns it, who calls for change without inspiring it, in trying so hard to fix her, Disney forget why she mattered in the first place. We are not mourning the past. We are longing for sincerity, for a story that dares to feel. Disney once knew how to lead with heart. It can again. But first, it needs to stop rewriting the classics and start listening to why they lasted. What do you like Snow White 2025? Tell us in the comments. Thank you for joining me in this review. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share, and of course subscribe. I truly appreciate every one of you. Let's make movie reviews not just informative, but truly beautiful and engaging together. This was Amello. I'll be seeing you in the next video. Ta-da!